I love Dungeons and Dragons. Second to that is my love for creating terrain and miniatures. Recently, I've created a build and color scheme inspired by the dungeon mold from Green Stuff World. It's worth noting that this isn't the most approachable way for making tiles, yet the cost of materials and work is definitely worth the end result. To start, you'll need the dungeon mold from Green Stuff World, some fast cast resin or plaster, as well as some parchment paper or a silicone mat for spills, and finally some gloves and a respirator for fumes and skin protection. The resin I use is a two-part resin, or a 1-to-1 ratio by weight or volume. The resin I use specifically is by FB Fiberglass Fast Cast Resin, and as someone who has used this stuff for years, I haven't come into a single issue with it. Like all chemicals that emit fumes, it's important to wear a respirator and be in a well-ventilated area. As annoying as it is to put on a chunky mask or put on gloves, your lungs and skin will thank you for it. When I mix these materials, I only have about 1 to 2 minutes of working time until it begins to thicken up and harden. The challenge with these molds specifically is the low walls which divide the pieces. I recommend pouring the resin with a container that has a lip, which will make your pours far more precise. Resin like this heats up a lot as it begins to harden. I wouldn't be surprised if this mold over time will degrade from long periods of use. While I don't think it's an immediate issue, it is something to consider. I came across this mold by chance. Generally, I scour the internet for new materials and pieces which I can add to my game. What caught my eye about this is its price and the detail of the tiles. Instead of being a traditional 1 inch by 1 inch, it's instead 32mm by 32mm, or 1¼ inch by 1¼ inch. This is something I actually prefer, as it gives more room for small, standard, and large miniatures. I love the design of these tiles. They can fit in almost any environment, from temple ruins, sprawling cities, molten brickwork, or decrepit dungeons covered in moss and bog water. After the pieces have had time to cure, I attach the pieces with hot glue to a piece of XPS foam that is 10mm thick. The foam isn't at all necessary, but it adds some volume to the piece, as well as a little extra weight. What's great about resin tiles like this is after I attach them to the XPS foam, I don't need a ruler or wire cutter. I just need to run my utility knife along the foam and it's done. Easy as that. Next comes the optional part. I attach magnetic sheets which have the same height and length as the foam. The reason I add this is to help prevent the tiles from being pushed apart from one another, but it also gives me the option to add magnetic walls or attachments in the future. While it wasn't shown here, I went outside and spray primed the tiles a matte white. Once it's dried, I set out my paint scheme. I use a khaki color as the base. As iconic as the standard dungeon grey is, it's nice to create something with colors outside of the monocolor palette of standard dungeon tiles. After the base coat is dried, I then bring out my two colors needed for this paint scheme, a deep green and a vibrant red. I water down these paints with water. Every now and then I mix them together to help the blending process. The consistency here I want is a wash. I still want to see the khaki color come through whilst keeping the red and green. Using a wet brush, I blend the two colors together, creating some mossy greens and muddy browns with a small dash of red. I decided to add a little extra detail by incorporating UV resin dyed with a speck of blue paint. Some of the tiles on this mold contain potholes or areas where the bricks have given way to what is underneath. This can easily be mud, lava, or acid. As I draw to the end in making these tiles, I finish with painting a flat black on the sides of the tiles and covering the tile with a matte varnish spray paint after for protection and longevity of the tiles. It's important to bear in mind with any aerosol spray paints that spraying too close to the XPS foam will result in dissolving of the foam. I love these tiles and I recommend this method for any tile making to any crafter out there. I hope you enjoy the video and take some inspiration from what I made. Thank you. Take care.